you get a property that's worth 100 grand, but then you manage to negotiate it down to 60 grand, even if you charge like a £10,000 fee for it, that's still a very, very good deal. You could kind of see that I was a young guy, I was hungry, I didn't really have much experience. Eventually, not straight away, but we got something going to where, I took on that first property, I started managing it for him, he saw I'd done well, and at that time he had 11 other properties, and I just ended up taking them all on.
I'm your host, Mina Simone, and you are now locked into the Quitters Never Win show. And we are here with Yusuf.
Hey, Mina, how's it going, all right?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing very, very good, thank you. I appreciate being a guest on your show today.
So Yusuf, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how old are you?
Of course. So I'm 28 years old, I'm a property entrepreneur, and I'm involved in, of course, the Airbnb model. I got started off with that back in 4 years ago, and a big part of what I do is work with people to help them start and grow an Airbnb business.
And how did you even get into that?
I got into that, it was about 4 years ago. I was kind of looking at different things to get started off with, different side hustles, and it was actually an advert where I come across someone talking about property, and he was talking about different strategies you can get started off with, and then one of the strategies was a strategy that allowed you to pretty much control other people's properties, and then from there I just kind of looked into it and just got involved and never really looked back, really.
So how did you go from having that idea, doing your research, and then just going for it?
No, of course. So in this ad that I saw initially, this guy was talking about how, property investing is the way forward, all these different things, and how you can actually get started even if you don't have the most amount of money. Now, that's what caught my attention, because I'm thinking, like most people, okay, look, if I want to get started off in property, I'm going to need a fat stack of cash. So when he talked about that, I was a bit intrigued. I listened tuned into his workshop, found out the basics about different things, but then from there I started researching. I started going to different events, some of the bigger players like Samuel Leeds, Progressive Property. I would say I probably did that for like a month or two until I had like a decent little idea of, okay, this is something I want to get started off with. And then from there, I just kind of went for it.
So was you going online and like looking for each person? Was you looking for workshops? Like, how did you go about finding the information of where these places?
Of course. So I was going online. I was more looking for, as you said, different workshops, different events that I could attend, where I could find out more information about this. I can learn more about this, connect with different people, and everything of that nature. And yeah, I was probably doing that for like 2 months, and then I felt like I had a decent amount of knowledge, but just enough to allow me to at least get started and give it a go.
Okay, so before you said you did it in a month, and then you just said 2 months. So how long, would you recommend someone to do their research for?
To be fair, what I would say, so the way I did it, so when I say I got involved with it like a month or two later, that's when I actually first started a program.
Okay.
So before, it was just me attending free events. I was talking to different people, watching YouTube videos, doing my own research, and I would say like February times when I actually paid for a course.
Okay.
So this is when I started, obviously, diving a lot deeper into it. I was learning about different strategies. I actually started off with a completely different strategy called deal sourcing. This is when you're obviously finding property deals, but instead of you taking it on for yourself, you're selling it on to investors for a fee. Okay. So that obviously appealed to me because I didn't have the most amount of money. So that's how I kind of got started, at least initially, and then I kind of pivoted to a different strategy. So
with the course initially that you did, how much was that initial investment?
It wasn't a lot. I think I paid like £500. It was like a 3-day course, workshop type of thing. And in that workshop, they basically teach you the basics of all the different strategies out there. So you got the buy to lets, you got the buy refurbish refinance model, where you're buying rundown properties, fixing it up and then flipping them. Rent to rents, of course, where you're renting properties from landlords and then you're reletting it out. And deal sourcing. So they were kind of giving us the basics of each strategy for us to be able to kind of figure out, okay, which one works best for me. Do you see what I mean? And then after that, I kind of ended up informally working for those guys, because they had like a deal sourcing company. So I was like, hey, let me work with you guys. Let me help you find deals, and you can sell them onto your investors, and we can do a little profit share 50-50. So that's what I started doing as well. I was doing that for like, not that long, to be fair, probably about 2 months or so. And then I just decided to go off and do my own thing. And this was probably about April 2020.
So are you loyal?
Am I loyal?
Yeah.
100%. The reason why that didn't go to plan was because I didn't really want to, I can't lie to you, I didn't really want to work for other people. Does that make sense? So I kind of wanted to do my own thing, and obviously I made them aware of that. These guys, actually, I still chat to them as a matter of fact. I saw them the other day. They're supposed to come on a podcast of my own. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so there's still that good relationship.
No.
You didn't leave on bad terms.
It wasn't like a sour. Nah, it was just me saying to them, hey, bro, look, I kind of want to do my own thing, etc., etc. They understood, and yeah, it wasn't. We didn't like sign any contracts or anything. It was more of an informal thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like I bought them a decent amount of deals for them to be happy.
Okay, that's good. So for those who don't know what deal sourcing is, what is it?
So deal sourcing is when you're finding property deals and then you're selling it on to investors for a fee. You could find different types of property deals. For example, deals to buy, like purchase properties, properties that are mad discounted, rent to rents, when you're renting properties from landlords and then you're subletting it out. I would say the average fee that people are charging is around, as of now, at least £3,000, but there's people that charge up to £10,000, even £15,000 per deal. So there are people making...
How comes there's such a big range in between?
It depends on the deal, you see. So if it's a really, really good deal, like for example, if you get a property that's worth 100 grand, but then you manage to negotiate it down to 60 grand, that even if you charge like a £10,000 fee for it, that's still a very, very good deal because you're getting it 30% below market value.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean?
Yeah.
So it depends on the deal itself, but there definitely are quite a few deal sources charging some serious money for their sourcing fees.
Okay. So you went on from deal sourcing to...
Rent to rents.
Okay.
Yeah, rent to rents. So renting properties from landlords, relaying it out. I initially went for the strategy that, if you were to rent like a big house, let's say a 5-bedroom house, and then you were to, let's say you're paying like £2,000 for example. 5-bed, you're letting out each of the individual rooms, let's say for example £800 per month. So, you use that monthly amount. I don't know the rough maths of that is, or whatever that is, you take away the rent from that, the bills, and then whatever's left on top is complete profit. So that's actually the strategy I got started off with. It's called rent to rent HMOs. Was
there like a group chat or something that you had to be in order to find this rent to rent deals or hear about it? No,
of course. So initially I found out about it in the previous training I did. So I already kind of knew about it, and I already knew that, okay, this is what I wanted to do. So what I was doing, I was just contacting different landlords in different areas throughout London, trying to get them to basically rent me their properties.
Okay.
And I was doing that for quite a bit of time, to be fair. I can't lie, a good couple of months. And every day I was going hard contacting landlords, estate agents, constantly getting turned down, constantly getting rejected. And eventually, I'll say probably about June times, late June 2020, I came across this one landlord. And it was a landlord in the Canary Wharf area. He had like a 6-bedroom house. I think at that time it was going for like close to £4,000 per month.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to go. I told him what I wanted to do over the phone. He seemed open to it. So I went to go chat to him at the viewing. He seemed open to that idea. We were chatting back and forth. I think he could kind of see that I was a young guy. I was, hungry. I didn't really have much experience. So, he liked that. And, eventually, not straight away, but we got something going to where, I took on that first property. I started managing it for him. He saw I done well. And at that time, he had 11 other properties in that same area, Canary Wharf, all HMOs. And I just ended up taking them all on. I took them all on.
He just trusted you with all those properties?
Yeah, it didn't happen straight away.
What's the timeline?
Timeline, I would say, for me to take all the properties on.
Yeah, because I need to understand. So you were calling. How long until you first got that yes? And then I want to know how long from then, like you got the yes, you're dealing with that property that you got.
All right, cool.
The other properties.
No, that's a good question. So, okay, late June, let's say late June is when I first went to go meet this landlord. Cool, okay. We started chatting, we started conversating. We didn't agree to anything there and then. We were still chatting after that over the space of, I would say, about 2-3 weeks, just for that one deal. So it was going back and forth. He was getting a feel for me. And I was trying to do my best to get him to give me the deal. We met up a few times, had a few conversations, and then eventually he decided to give in and test me with that deal. So, all right, cool, let's see how you do. So he gave me that deal. It was my responsibility to obviously find tenants, carry out the viewings, get the place booked up, etc., etc. And that's what I did. It probably took me like, a couple of weeks to do that. And then slowly he started giving me more properties. Do you see what I'm saying? But I would say 2 months after I initially met up with him, I took on all of his properties.
Okay. So how did you go about, like, you've got the property, yeah? How did you go about putting tenants inside it, getting tenants for the properties? Because you're saying you obviously had to fill them up.
Of course.
But how did you go about filling them up?
No, of course. So with when you're renting out rooms, the biggest platform that you go to, like a tenant goes to when they're trying to find rooms, is Spare Room.
Okay.
So we will just list on those platforms, on that platform, sorry, and then a lot of people would come to us. Where the properties themselves was in Canary Wharf, obviously that's a popping area. So a lot of people wanna live there. So it wasn't really too hard to find people. It was more of a case of just doing the viewings, having the conversations, negotiating the rents, and then doing the paperwork after that. And then once we got them in, just kind of managing them, which to be fair wasn't too hard, because if someone's living there for 6 months to a year, they're not really bothering you. And I would say that's a really good thing about HMOs, is that it's very, I wouldn't say passive, but you're not really having to do a lot of work. Do you see what I mean? Because if someone's just living there for like a year, they don't really need to call you unless something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So I would say that's probably one of the perks of doing HMOs.
And then you would probably speak to the landlord from that point when they call you, because that's not your problem, basically. You would be the middleman.
Well, kind of, yes. But the landlord didn't want to know unless it was serious. So I was kind of dealing with all the headaches and that. Does that make sense?
So did you have to pay for all the, like, if there was a problem, let's say the boiler broke down?
Oh, nah. So what the arrangement I had with the landlord was, he would kind of allocate a certain budget per month to me if I needed to spend it on certain maintenance costs or whatever the case may be, and I would just kind of feel free to use that if something did come up, unless it was something major serious. Like one time we had one property, one of the 6 beds in Canary Wharf, like there was like a leak in the top floor in one of the bedrooms, and then the ceiling actually ended up collapsing. Yeah, it was a serious thing, to be fair, like proper fully collapsed. No one could live there for like a good couple of weeks. They had to be put up in hotels and stuff. So if it's something like that, then yeah, obviously I have to let the landlord know. But if it's just like minor stuff like, the tenant's been locked out, or, the heating's not working, or whatever the case may be, then, I would attend to that.
Okay. And you said you did coaching as well.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you get into coaching?
So coaching, I got started off with that probably about 2 years ago, 2020. Oh, sorry, no, late 21, about November 2021. So at that time, I wasn't really focusing on HMOs anymore. I was more focused on Airbnbs and service accommodation. So I'll say probably I was doing HMOs for a bit, but then late 2020, early 2021, that's when I more started pivoting to service accommodation or Airbnb, just because the problem with HMOs was, it's cool, you can make money on that, but when it came to looking for other opportunities out there, like I'm trying to look for other 5 beds, 6 beds, there's not really a lot of them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And when I do find them, the rents are mad, and it just doesn't make sense for me to take them on with the money that I'm making. Whereas with Airbnbs and service accommodation, I can be taking on 1 beds, 2 beds, 5 beds, you see what I mean? And I could profit from that.
So with the Airbnbs, are you still kind of doing the same thing, rent to rent, but just on Airbnb?
Exactly that. So rent to rent is just obviously, that's kind of like the thing you have with the landlord. But then after that, you could do HMOs, for example, Airbnbs. Some people rent it out to the council, for example. That's called social housing. You see what I'm saying? So there are different strategies when it comes to the rent to rent. But at that time, after the HMO stuff, I was more focusing on Airbnbs.
Okay. And the landlords, do you have to make them aware that you're using it for Airbnb?
Yeah, you do 100%. You 100% do. Some people try not to because it's easier at first, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's not really it's not sustainable. It's not like a sustainable business. Maybe you can do it 1 or 2 places, but if you're trying to take on like 50 or 100 places and you're telling all the landlords that you're not doing that, when you are, something's gonna crack or something's gonna fall.
So how many properties, should I say, have you got underneath you right now?
So I don't do rent to rents no more. So I stopped that, coming up to like 1.5 years ago now.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what do you do now?
So right now, 2 things. I focus on buying properties, and I've got the coaching business, which works to help people start and grow a rent to rent Airbnb business.
Okay, so you buy properties now. Do you feel like that's more beneficial than the rent to rent?
It is, because the thing is, when it comes to rent to rents, that's more of like a starting point for people to get started in property. Because let's be real, a lot of people, like a good portion of people, it's a bit difficult for them to get on the property ladder. So that is kind of a starting point. If we're talking about cost-wise, to get started off from rent to rent or to take on like a property to do rent to rent with, of course it varies depending on what area you're looking in, but if you're looking in a relatively not that expensive area, you're probably looking at around maybe 5, 6K, maybe 7 to get started.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Okay, so that's quite cheap.
No, it's cheap. It's cheap. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not like, but it's still a business. Does that make sense? Like, you're very active, you're very hands-on, but that's the amount that you can start off with. And of course, when it comes to profit-wise, it really varies. It really depends. But I would say for that sort of deal, you're looking at anywhere between, and obviously I'm just using rough numbers, anywhere between 700, maybe up to £1,000 per month.
So why do you need 5K to start?
So if you're taking on a rent to rent, you obviously need to pay the landlord's rent.
Okay.
You need to cover the deposit. You need to, if the place needs furnishing, you got to furnish it as well. If it's looking a little bit tatty, you got to get up to a certain standard, a certain quality. Do you see what I mean?
So you've got to pay the rent, and then, so like, is it like 3 months rent or?
No, I mean, it depends. So some landlords may try to say, hey, look, I want 3 months, I want 6 months, I want 12 months. I've never personally done that before. I've always just paid standard rent up front. That's it. But yeah, if you're trying to keep costs down, first month's rent, deposit, ideally not a deposit to be fair, but worst case scenario, those two, and then all the other stuff. But obviously it can be less than that. I mean, I've taken on deals where I've only spent like £400 or £500. Do you know what I mean? And those deals were making me, there was one deal in particular I'm thinking about, it was making me what, £800, £900 per month.
Okay.
But the reason for that was because when I took on that deal, there was already everything in it. Like all the furniture, it was all set up. I didn't pay the rent up front because there was like a rent-free period he gave me, and I didn't pay the deposit either. I just paid for like little things.
How do you go about finding those type of things?
When you say,
Those deals?
Oh, so it's just making those phone calls. To be fair, that one deal, how I found that one deal, I spent like £500. I already had a particular flat in a building, and then I knew the caretaker. And then I would chat to the caretaker, I made friends with him, and he told me about other people that he knew in the building that wanted their properties to be rented out. So that's how I came across that particular deal.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's just lucky.
I mean, it's network. You network with different people.
Okay.
People know different people. I even got a few deals from just making friends with the guy that was running a local furniture shop. You know what I'm saying? Because he's obviously dealing with like property owners, all these different things. So I'm telling him, hey, look, this is what I'm looking to do. If you're able to get me deals, then I can give you a little kickback.
Yeah, because you're gonna have to furnish them.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to furnish them, but like, he got me the deal. Do you see what I mean? So I have to obviously show my appreciation and my gratitude to him.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
What type of like fee would he get for getting you a deal?
So I'll put it this way, so going back to the conversation we had before about deal sourcing, remember?
Yeah.
So if I'm finding a property for someone, I'm saying, hey, look, this is a property I've got here for you. It's a rent to rent. This is how much you can make per month. Do you want it? And that person takes it. I could charge that person 3K.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And that's average. That's not even like too high or too low. You see what I mean?
Yeah. So then he would get a chunk from that, or?
Yeah, he would get like a little fee. He wouldn't get like that amount. I'll probably give him like what, £1,000, something like that for each deal he bought me.
But that's really good.
It's decent.
Okay.
It's very decent.
So you spoke about the fact that you're doing coaching. How did you get into coaching? So we've gone from doing deal sourcing, we've gone to Airbnb's rent to rent, and now we're here doing coaching. Talk to me about it.
Now, of course, it was actually one of my boys that put the idea in my head. I wasn't really for it at first. I thought like you had to be someone that was on a mega level, like multi-millionaire, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins type of level. You sure what I mean? So he and this was the person that actually helped me out originally with kickstarting my original business. Does that make sense? So he gave me a lot of help, a lot of support. He was my mentor.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you find him?
On Facebook.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really like I was using it just because like it was beneficial with connecting with different people in the property space. You sure what I mean?
So we'll jump back into that in a minute. But as you were saying, sorry, because I'm just trying to understand, we've got a mentor now from Facebook.
Yeah, so as a mentor, I started working with this guy, it was like mid to late 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, so I saw him, he would be like he would basically help property professionals, build their personal brand to grow their business. Mm-hmm. So I saw him doing it with other people, so like, yeah, I like this guy, I want to work with him. So he helped me out with that. He's the one that kind of got me into social media, into the content. Like before I was never doing it. So he's kind of the one that put me onto that. Okay. So I was working with him for a bit on that side. Went pretty good. I'll say probably like a year after that. He called me randomly, he was saying, hey, look, how's it going? Ret-a-tear. And then he like, as we were speaking, he said to me, hey, look, have you thought about coaching? I'm like, nah, like, I've never thought about that. He's like, what, would you not think about doing it? I'm like, nah, man, I wouldn't think about doing that. Like, I'm not, like, who am I type of thing? Does that make sense? But obviously he was kind of plotting the idea in my head, and he was talking about the different reasons why I should do it. And then I thought about it, and then at the end of the phone call, I ended up paying him, I think it was about 3K to coach me.
Wait, what? So he basically cold called you, basically?
Yeah.
And you ended up paying 3K at the end of the call?
Yeah. Because you know, I know the guy, I have a relationship with him, and I have had high trust in him as well because he helped me before. So I was just like, all right, cool. But I'm not gonna lie to you, after that, I was regretting it like mad. I was like, what did I do? Like, shit, should never have done this, you know what I'm saying? But then I went to go link him, went through a game plan, a blueprint, and I can't lie to you, the coaching, it did kind of, it was slow at first, but then when it started taking off, it started taking off. It started taking off, probably about 2-3 months after.
So what kind of things did you use or platforms did you use to get your coaching to where it is now?
I use social media. So I started off on Facebook. I was on that for probably a year and a bit. And then I started using TikTok, I started using Instagram. And as of now, till today, that's where all my leads for my coaching business comes from. It comes from social media, organic, nothing paid.
Really?
Yeah.
You've never done a paid ad?
I mean, we're doing it now, but all this time, since I started back in late 2021, never done any paid ads.
Okay. So, do you feel like paid ads have helped, or? No,
we're literally only starting to do it very recently. Probably a month ago. Does that make sense? So, when you're running paid ads, there's a lot of testing involved with it. If that makes sense. So it's still very, very early on with it. But obviously when it comes to the bigger guys in the space, yeah, a lot of them run paid ads. A lot of them are spending 100, 200 grand a month, and they're spending that on paid ads.
200 grand a month on paid ads?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes even more.
That's quite a lot for paid ads.
Yeah, it's a return, you see. So typically how it works is when you're running paid ads, the ROAS, or the return on advertising costs or whatever, you want to get is 4 times the amount you spend. So if you're spending 100 grand, you're expecting to get back 400.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay, understood. So they're investing 200 and they're getting back 2 times the amount, or 4 times the amount.
4 times is what's, the average.
About 800. Oh wow, that's amazing. And that's just from coaching?
Yeah, not me, by the way. That's other, I'm not talking
other
about
people.
Yeah, I'm talking about other big places in the space.
So how much have you made from coaching?
How much have I made? I've probably, off the top of my head, probably just a little under $1 million.
A little under.
That's revenue, by the way. That's not let
me run away with
Yeah, that's just a little under $1 million since I started.
Okay, and when did you start?
No, I got my first client in February 22.
Wow, so that's really good. And that's just coaching, that's not even the properties as well?
Nope.
Okay, so do you run it as a business altogether, or do you look at them as different things?
No, it was different things. So when I first got started, I was I was also doing the property business as well. So I was doing the service accommodation stuff. At that time, I probably had about 21 rent-to-rent service accommodations. It was going well and stuff, it was decent, but then the coaching took off. I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? This is really, it didn't, with the rent-to-rents, it didn't take off as quickly as the coaching did. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I remember when I can't lie, the first time when I actually opened my eyes, I was in February. But then early February, I think it was a space of 3 days, I'd closed 4 clients. At that time, I was charging 2.5 each.
Yeah.
2.5K.
So you're just okay.
And then so that happened in 3 days, I closed 4 people, and it was 10 grand. So I was like that's mad. I've not seen that sort of money that quickly from rent-to-rent service accommodation. Does that make sense? So that's why eventually I just chose to prioritize that and kind of offload the service accommodation units.
Okay. So now you're owning properties. Are you renting them out, or?
Yeah. So the properties that so we're actually in the process of buying quite a few. So we're looking in the South Wales area, and the idea is to so we're doing the BRR strategy. So that's when you buy a rundown property for very cheap. You do it up to a certain standard, and then you refinance it. So the idea is the money you invested in, you're going to pull most of it back out when you refinance it. Does that make sense?
Okay. So explain it to people who are watching.
Let's say you got a property for 100K.
Okay.
That's how much it costs, yeah?
Yeah.
So let's say for example now, it costs like 30k to fix up. Or let's say 40 actually. Yeah, it's gonna cost
40, so we're on 140 now.
140. Yeah, obviously there's a little bit more to it when it comes to legal costs or whatever. I'm just keeping numbers very simple.
random
Yeah.
numbers,
So 100. Actually, no. Let me not even say 100. Let's say you bought a property for 50. Let's say 50k. Yeah.
That's not going to be anywhere.
No, that's gonna be
a shed.
No, that's gonna be far up north. Yeah, 100%.
That's a shed.
No. So like, let's say for example, you got like obviously in London, yeah. But
No, I feel like even if you were to look up north, 50k is probably just a flat. It's not.
Depends up north, and depends where up north you're looking. So I mean, I'll give you an example of one of the deals that we're taking on right now. All in all, we spent 110k on the property itself. So we're gonna go to the bank manager now and say, hey, Mr. Bank Manager, I want to take out a mortgage on this property. They'll loan me 75% of the loan to value, which works out to about just a little over 112k. And that's what they will loan you basically. And you invested 110k, so pretty much you're pulling all your money back out and you're getting a little extra on top. Does that make sense? So you basically got a free property.
How?
So, okay, so...
Because now you've got that money loaned.
Yeah.
What are you doing with it? Because isn't it debt?
No, so it's like, okay, so let's say you go buy a property right now, yeah? What do most people do? They go get a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
They pay 25%, a few extra legal costs, and then they take on a property. So if I'm buying a property for 100k now, I'm gonna put 25k down as a deposit, pay a couple of legal costs, stamp duty, legal fees, etc. So let's say I pay 30k.
Okay.
So now I've got a property worth 100k, but I paid 30k, and now I've got a mortgage for 30 years or whatever. Does that make sense? So it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. The only difference is when you initially buy the property with the BRR method, you're buying it in cash. Does that make sense? You're not getting a mortgage, but then afterwards, when you go to the bank, they're gonna loan you the money to buy it from you. So now that belongs to the bank. Does that make sense? Before it didn't belong to the bank. Now it belongs to the bank. But now you're just paying off the mortgage. Does that make sense?
A little bit, but I feel like for anyone watching, they might be a bit confused.
Of course. I'm
only understanding a little bit because of property knowledge that I have.
Okay.
But I wouldn't understand if I didn't know anything.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All right. Let me try to break it down in a very, very simple way. So, I buy a property for 100k in cash.
Okay, we've got 100k. I've got it here.
Yeah. Sorry. No. Let's do that again. I buy it for 50k in cash. Yeah. 50k.
50.
Yeah.
Okay.
I spend 30k to refurb it.
80k.
80k now. Yeah. Now the same property in that area is worth 120.
Okay.
But
so that's 40k difference.
Yeah, that's like actually 120 is a bit much. Let's say like 110 or something. Let's just say 110.
30k difference.
Yeah. So 110, but now I got this for 50 because it's so broke up, like fully broke up. But now I got it to a normal state. But I spent 80 in total now.
Yeah.
But now this property is worth 110.
So it's 30k.
So now does that make sense? There's a 30k difference. Now I've got two options. I can sell it and make a 30k profit, or I can take a mortgage out on it. Does that make sense? So before I didn't have a mortgage, I fully owned it.
Yeah.
I didn't have no mortgage. But if I wanted to take a mortgage out now, I'm not gonna own it no more. The banks are gonna, technically you are gonna own it, but you got a mortgage on it now, so the bank kind of own it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you go to the bank now, you say, hey, I want to take a mortgage out on this property, and then the banks loan you 75% of the property value itself, and then basically that's how you kind of get the money back out that you put in. So 75% of 110k, that's 82k, just a little over. Mm-hmm. Mind you invested 80k now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now the bank are loaning you that money, you have to cover 25% of it. Does that make sense? But they loaned you, they loaned you 75% of it, and then you have to cover the remaining 25%.
But that doesn't make sense to me because then it's 2k different.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. Yeah, so they essentially paid you 2k over what you originally spent. Does that make sense? Or
yeah,
nah?
But what are you doing with the money now?
So you can do whatever you want with it. You can go buy another property. You can leave it in the bank. Does that make sense? That's how people like scale to like hundreds of properties. They recycle the same money over and over again. So they put money in, they take the money back out for a remortgage after getting the property up to a certain value, and then they do it with the same do it with another property.
So why wouldn't you just sell the property and get the full 130k?
So the reason why some people choose not to do that is because they want to grow their own property portfolio.
Okay.
Does that make sense? they want to have like a passive residual income per month. You know, if they're renting out to tenants for like 3-5 years, they're not really having to think about it. It's just passive income coming in.
Okay.
And if someone's got 50 properties, you know, if they're making £200 per property times by 50, I mean, quite a bit of money you're making passively.
Yeah.
So that's why people do that. I mean, you can choose to flip it. A lot of people prefer to do that as well. I think it really depends on you.
Okay, as an individual.
Yeah. I personally prefer to keep it.
Okay, and just build the portfolio.
Exactly.
Okay. So, has there been any major losses during this whole period of you starting your business?
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, quite a lot.
Like what?
Losses. Major losses. Ooh, I've made losses with investments. I can't lie. Yeah, there's been certain investments where I've just taken like a mad loss. I can't lie. So okay, I'll get into detail. So there was this. I was more investing into this company. It was a company I invested in. They were doing more like, you know, forex trading, all that stuff. You know, I kind of knew the person. You know, I was, you know, good friends with him. I say I was good friends with him. I mean, I knew them. Does that make sense? I got to speaking to him. He told me what he did. He told me about the company he's starting. I liked it, and I decided to basically, you know, go ahead and want to invest. And then I invested, and then, you know, I didn't really get the money back. So yeah.
Oh, how much was that investment?
About 50.
50K, and you never got it back?
Nope.
Did you speak to your friend about it?
I mean, yeah, but what can you do? Like, I mean, yeah, he tells me stories, but like I know where it is.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So that's within trading, but within the property game, because that's exactly what you do, what are the major losses that you've actually had?
So major losses, okay, so if we're talking about rent to rents, I think, I wouldn't say I've had major losses, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, I've had losses. Like, for example, if I'm running a property as an Airbnb and I get guests coming in and they're trashing the place and they're stealing everything, yeah, that's a loss.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's not like I think that happened to me a few times, and I ended up spending like £1,500 or like £2,000. And yeah, that was like I guess it's a major loss, if you want to call it that. But I haven't really outside of that, I haven't really taken any mad losses like that, I'm gonna be honest with you. Not in property.
So looking back to when you started, is there any advice you wish you got that would have helped along the way?
Nah, you know, I don't. I mean, yeah, obviously you always learn from your mistakes and stuff, but I genuinely feel like I had the right people by me from the start to kind of help me, you know, grow and excel this thing. I guess the only thing I made change is that I would have got it quicker.
Yeah. Because
I did wait a long time before I started like getting like mentored and coached by other people. I say a long time, like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months. You know what I mean? But obviously that could have helped progress things a lot quicker. But aside from that, nah, I don't really say, I wouldn't say I have any regrets, if I'm being honest with you, because obviously the mistakes I've made in property, they haven't been like major crazy mistakes where I've taken, like I've spoken to people that have taken disgusting losses. Like even, what? I mean, for example, you know, I was speaking to one guy the other day and he'd taken on a rent-to-rent deal, but he miscalculated the numbers. So he's actually, now he thought he could charge like, for example, £150 per night. But come to realize he could only charge £110 per night. So that was like, he was having to cover part of the rent from his own pocket.
Okay.
Because he wasn't making the money he thought he was, he messed up on the deal. So he's losing money on this deal now. Does that make sense? So there's people that have been in those situations. I mean, I spoke to someone one time that he invested in a rent-to-rent deal. He spent like probably 10, 12K, and he actually had the deal taken back from him. Like the landlord had to take it back from him.
How come?
Because the building itself, they had a lease restriction that prohibited people from doing Airbnbs in the building. So nobody can do Airbnbs in the building, basically. Okay. But he didn't know that. The landlord didn't know that as well. He didn't check, and he was doing it for a bit, and then the building manager just clocked on what he was doing, and he shut him down. So that's, he took a little loss there as well.
Oh, wow.
So there's definitely, risks involved when it comes to getting started off in this business. You just need to make sure that you have the right knowledge, the right know-how, the right understanding to allow you to kind of minimize those risks. And I think I kind of had that from early on to kind of allow me not to take crazy losses.
What's one of the bits of advice that someone's given you along the way that's helped you till this point and you would give to someone else?
The bits of advice, I would say, okay, so there's two. There's two, yeah. I'll start off with the the specific, more specialized one. And I think this came from like the first mentor I had, and he was, he's the one that got me on social media. Now, prior to that, I was never a social media guy, like ever. Even like back when I was coming up, Instagram, Snapchat, Prime days, like nah, that weren't me. But he drilled it in my head like this is where it's at. Like this is, if you're not on here, like you ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like you ain't got a business. So it took me a little while, but eventually I opened my eyes up to that. And, looking back at it now in terms of like what's been done and the progress that's been made, I would say that's probably been like the biggest thing that I've learned. And obviously advice that I received that helped me kind of, progress and get to where I am today, if that makes sense. And obviously I don't really cost like, I'm not having to invest money into social media, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of doing my thing. You know what I mean? Putting myself out there. So I guess on the more specialized part, it's definitely that. I think more on the generic part, it's just, I kind of spoke about this before, but like, I think what I had going for me was that with this business right here, I didn't really have like a backup plan. I didn't really have like, alternatives. If this didn't work, I wasn't going to go back to working a job. Does that make sense? Like working a job for me is just not an option. Like I could never do that.
Have you ever worked a job before?
I worked a job before, but I can never go back to it. Like at that time, I just despised working a job. Does that make sense?
What job did you do?
I was doing like different jobs, to be fair. I was doing like warehouse jobs, delivery driver job. To be fair, the delivery driver job wasn't too bad because I was like self-employed. I was doing my own thing. That was probably the best job I had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But outside of that, like I used to work in construction, railways, and I despised, working a job. I can't lie.
How long did you work like jobs for until you were like, I can't do this?
Probably like 6-7 months.
Okay, so you were jumping from warehouse, railways, driving in the space of 7 months.
Yeah.
And they were still hiring you, knowing that you jump.
Nah, I mean, you see those jobs, those are the types of jobs that you can get on the same day of applying. You know what I mean?
Do you think?
No, because I was getting them.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was more like agency, like especially with construction and railway, it wasn't really like a full-time thing, it was more like an agency thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like you're like a contractor.
So tell me a little bit more about like your upbringing and your schooling. Did you go to school? Did you?
Yeah, I went to school. I went to school. I did go to school. But my upbringing, I mean, obviously I had a decent upbringing, like in terms of like family and that. Had both parents. Had a lot of brothers. I'm like the youngest of like seven older brothers, and I got an older sister.
So there's 8 of you altogether?
Yeah, eight siblings. Yeah. So it was like in terms of like family wise, that support network was there from the start, and I had no issues with that. But obviously, the older I started getting, the more I started kind of, hanging around with certain people that were kind of like, that thought a certain way, you know what I'm saying? Certain people that were out here, like doing certain stuff in the streets.
What does that mean to those watching?
No, of course, like people that were out here on the roads, basically.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So I started hanging around with people that were more out here on the roads. I was fascinated. Does that make sense?
Why was you fascinated?
It's just the money that people were making. This was the money that people were making. People were making, like the people around me were making big money on the roads, I can't lie. But obviously at the time, like my family, like they wanted me to, you know what I'm saying? They were keeping me like on the straight path. Like they did
straight and narrow.
Yeah, they did everything for me. Like they literally did everything for me. But for me, I didn't really, I kind of had my own way of looking at it. I was like, nah, man, because I was fascinated by the road life, you know what I'm saying? And the money people were making. Like if I'm seeing people working jobs and that, I'm not seeing people making big money. But if I'm seeing people on the road, I'm seeing them making big money. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I want that to be me type of thing, I kind of got to do the same thing. Because obviously you're not really, for me, like there's no entrepreneurs that I'm seeing, there's no big business owners, like there's none of that. So I'm not really thinking about that. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm only thinking about what's around me.
But there are jobs that do pay really well.
The thing is, like, obviously when you're younger, it's not like you can get like a high paying, corporate finance job where they're paying you 6 figures a year. Like you can't do that. You have to.
True.
You know what I mean?
But then there's also, on the roads, there's still like a chain. You're not just gonna jump in and you're gonna have money. You've got to build to that.
No, of course. No. You're right.
So
but then,
still the
but
same
then,
in both.
No, 100%. But then
just
obviously,
one with more risk.
It's more risk, but it can be quicker as well. Does that make sense?
So quick money.
Yeah, 100%.
Easy come, easy go.
Yeah, you're right. 100% easy.
How did it work out for you?
Not too good. Nah, I was like, my road life did not last very long. Yeah.
How long did it last?
I'll probably say like when I started making like a bit of money, how long did it last? It probably lasted about probably lasted like 4 or 5 months. Yeah, and I got arrested.
You didn't even make it to 6 months.
No, I didn't even make it to 6 months, and I got bagged. Obviously that caused a lot of disruption as well. That put like at that point, that's when like my family were the absolute most disappointed in me. Because like they did everything for me, and they literally gave me everything I wanted. Anything I needed, I could go to them if I needed money, if I needed to be bought whatever. Like I really came up with like a silver spoon in my mouth. But at the same time, I'm like, nah, I want to do my own thing. You know, I don't wanna
That's
like.
crazy to me though, because I feel like a lot of people turn to the roads because they haven't got a choice.
It's true.
Like a lot of people are actually just trying to survive. Like a lot of people who do what they're doing, they might not have that silver spoon, so they're literally trying to make money to make sure everyone's good in their household. So why did it intrigue you? And then, do you get what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
I need to understand it.
No, you're right, because a lot of the friends I was around, they didn't have that. Like they came up, like they came up struggling. Does that make sense? Like I was the most fortunate one amongst my peers because of the family. Obviously, they had families and that, they have loving families and that, but it was just how nicely they had it, how patterned they had it. Does that make sense? Like I could, if I needed money, I could call my brothers and I'll get money like that. Does that make sense? Because obviously I got like loads of brothers, so I call all different ones of them. I get like £200, £300 from each one, and then I could have like a little bit of money there. Do you know what I mean?
But that's mad to me. Like, why would you wanna now?
But then you know what it is? I wanted to be my own person. Like I wanted to be independent. I was like, nah, man, I can't rely on I can't keep relying on my family. I want to do my own stuff. You know what I mean? And obviously, again, I was just more alert to the road life because of the people I was hanging around. Now these are people I come up with in school. I went to school with these people.
What area are you from?
I'm from Ilford originally.
Okay.
So I went to school with these guys, and I was talking about I was in the same classroom as them, and from year 7 onwards, and we came up, you know, and then you see it as well. You see people, you like, especially the respect as well. When people are saying, oh, this person makes a lot of money, you know what I mean? You kind of want to be that person. Does that make sense? Like everybody's respecting, looking up to, you know what I'm saying? They're looking at, oh, this is the guy with the big money, you know what I'm saying? He's out here, he's doing his stuff, like that status. Does that make sense? You wanted to have that status.
Okay. So you wanted limelight.
Yeah, I mean, not. I want to say it's that. I want to say that a little bit, obviously a little bit. But obviously you want a pattern, like you want to, you know what I'm saying? You want the nice things in life. You want like the nice girls, you want the nice cars, you know what I'm saying? You want the money, yeah.
So you went to jail. How old was you when you went to jail?
I was how old was I? I was 20 years old.
20.
So I caught my case when I was 19. I actually went on a run before I went in jail. I flew out the country. I was in Egypt.
Wait, how did you get through passport control?
I wasn't wanted at the time. Like I had to go back to court. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I had to go back to court for finalizing things and then sentencing me, etc. And because I pled guilty, you see.
But this is what's confusing, yeah. Not in I need to understand this. So if you get caught with drugs, you don't go to jail straight away.
Nah, I mean,
because isn't that like technically?
Nah. I mean, it's like I was like low level. Like I got caught with, you know what I'm saying? I got caught with I think it was probably like if I got caught with 20 kilos, then it might be a bit different. Does that make sense? But it wasn't really because they caught me they couldn't necessarily prove there and then that, okay, this person's dealing and stuff. It was all right, cool, let's investigate. And then later on I got charged, I got someone to court, etc., etc. So now, I mean, they didn't really I was still out basically. I was still out. And then I went to court, I played guilty. But then after I went to court, the idea, I can't lie, man, I didn't want to go to jail, man. I didn't want to go to jail. I even remember when I was, this was before I even found out that, okay, this is serious, you're looking at a jail sentence. I went to go to court, speak to my solicitors, and I was with my brother. And then the solicitors was telling my brother, yeah, man, in terms of sentencing, he's probably looking at 3 years and that in jail. And I couldn't, when I heard that, I was like, I kind of shed a tear, man. Because I was like, man, I've never been in jail before. That's crazy, and I'm going to jail for this long. And then after that, one of my brothers took me to the side, had a conversation with me, and then kind of put the idea in my head of, hey, look, why don't you think about just having a fresh start somewhere else? Does that make sense? And at that time, my sister was living in Egypt with her kids.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Are you Egyptian?
Nah, I'm not Egyptian. Egyptian. Yeah, but my sister was living in Egypt at the time. Something about the education system and stuff, and obviously, being more on the religious side of things as well, being more in tune with that as well. So they were there, and then I was like, I actually didn't want to go to jail at the time. So I kind of thought, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And then I flew out. It was calm. Nothing really happened when I flew out. I was just more I felt safe again. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to go to jail. But the plan was over there. I was going to go uni and that. I was going to go uni. I was going to study. Even that's what I'm saying. They were going to pay for my family and that were going to pay for my tuition fees, and it wasn't cheap. You know what I mean?
So they knew you already, but you were meant to go to jail, and then they were like, "Let me pay for you."
Yeah, they
on the run.
Yeah, I swear to God. So that's how that's how pattern that's how well they were treating me. But then as I was out there, it was probably 8 months in. I was like, nah, man, I didn't wanna be there no more. I wanted to come back. So this was like what, I remember it was the 1st of June, the 1st of June 2016. I came back, but then when the plane landed in Heathrow Airport, you know, when everyone kind of gets up to get their stuff, all these different things, I heard the captain on the speakerphone telling everyone, hey, sit down. So I was like, all right, cool, something's up. Because I knew I was going to get arrested. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know if it was on an airplane. I didn't know if they were going to wait for me to come out and then arrest me. But then when they said that, I was like, all right, cool, yeah, I know what time it is. Everyone's waiting for a couple of minutes. And then captain gets back on the speakerphone and says, hey, Yusuf Sheikh, please identify yourself right now. Yusuf Sheikh, please identify yourself. Obviously, that's me.
The police didn't run on the plane?
No, they were waiting
I've been
for
on
me.
a plane when the police have done that.
Yeah, they were there. So the captain, that's when he got on the speakerphone and said that. He said, Yusuf Sheikh, identify yourself. And then that's me. So I was like, hey, it's me. And then obviously everyone's just there looking at me like, oh, like, who's this guy? And then the police were waiting for me at the front. Does that make sense? So I went to the front, head down, just walk in, and I got escorted off the plane. And then they took me, they took me to the police station. And then the next day I went court, and I got my sentencing.
Wow. And how long did you get?
I got 3 years and 7 months.
Oh, wow. You even got the extra 7?
Yeah, they got the extra 7 because I went on a run.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
No. So it wasn't a good idea.
I mean, I was kind of relieved because I thought I was going to get way more. I thought, they're going to throw the book at me. I wanted to run. I was playing about with them. I thought I was going to get like 5. So I was kind of relieved when they gave that to me. And then, yeah, that's what happened.
Oh, wow. So when you were in jail, what type of people were you hanging around with?
Types of people, like, it was calm people there. I was like, man, them. To be fair, I was pretty okay in jail. Because first, like, I didn't really have beef with like different areas like that, so that was cool on that part. But then a lot of people there knew my brothers as well, so like that was like, it was kind of like, it was a good feeling. Like, all right, cool, but at least people know, you know what I mean? They know my brothers, they're cool. So yeah, I was in Pentonville for like what, 4, not long to be fair, 2 weeks. But then I went Feltham, and then that's when I did like most of my sentencing. I spent like what, 18 months there. Feltham is obviously a young offender institute or whatever. Yeah, for like 18 to 21-year-olds. And then the last 4 months, I did it in HMP Brixton. But it was calm. It was honestly calm. It wasn't like, I wasn't even getting into like mad. I think like even madnesses, I probably got into like 3 fights when I was in jail.
3. How did you get the scar on your face?
I had that when I was like a young kid. I can't remember. I think I fell, like I was climbing on some stacks of like tables or some whatever, and then I just kind of fell back, and then it's just kind of, yeah, that's what happened.
I was scared you got it in jail.
No. I didn't really. Nothing mad like that. Nothing mad like that happened in jail. To be fair, I was calm. Okay.
So, in regards to business, is there anything you'd like to let anyone know watching? Any advice you want to give to anyone who's trying to get into what you do?
Yeah. So, in terms of advice, I would say biggest advice. I mean, look, there's many different opportunities out there. So many people are doing so many different things, etc., etc. Obviously, myself, I focus on property. I mainly focus on obviously working with people that don't necessarily have the most amount of capital to get started, but they're looking to get started in property. They want to start a property business, and they want to get to a point where they eventually can start investing in property. I think a big mistake a lot of people make is that they save up a bit of money. They save up like 20, 30 grand, and then they think to themselves, hey, let me buy a property.
Yeah.
I think that's a massive mistake.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh,
that's bad. Because you know why? Because like you've saved up that amount. Let's say you're working a job, you're making, I don't know, 2K a month after taxes. Cool. But now you've taken what, 3-4 years, let's say for example, to save up that money. And now you've invested that into the property that's going to be paying you what? After all expenses, after mortgage payments, 250, 300 pounds a month. Like that's nothing. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, long term it's good because long term there's capital appreciation, property prices go up in value. So there you're calm, but what about the here and now? What about cash flow right here and now? Does that make sense? So now let's switch up the scenarios a little bit and let's use a rent to rent example. Let's say each deal, let's say in that example you spend 30K to buy a property. But let's say you use that 30K to get involved in rent to rents. Now let's say each deal you're taking on is, let's just say 6K. Yeah, on average. How many deals is that? That's about 5 deals, right? Let's say each deal is making you, let's not even say nothing crazy. Let's say £700 per month in profit. What's 7 times 5? It's like £3,500 per month in profit. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so it makes more sense to do that.
It makes a lot more sense because what's the priority for you? Is the priority for you to invest the current money that you have, or is the priority for you to increase your monthly cash flow? If you're someone that's got like 500,000 there, just sitting in the bank. I wouldn't advise you to get started off in rent to rent. Does that make sense?
So if you're just trying to build, then
If you're trying to build, 100%.
Okay.
So that's what I'd say. I'll say focus on, biggest advice I've got for people, focus on increasing your monthly cash flow right now. I mean, yeah, focus on increasing your monthly cash flow rather than just thinking about investing whatever money that you have. You sure what I'm saying? And if you're someone that doesn't have the most amount of money to invest anyways, again, multiple different strategies. Rent to rents, for example, very low barrier to entry. If you're someone that doesn't even have money for rent to rents, deal sourcing, that could be a decent way for you to build up enough cash pot to start buying properties. If you're selling $3,000 per deal, I've got people that I know that have deal sourcing businesses. They sell multiple deals per week, and they're charging $3,000 per deal. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's many different ways to go about it, but 100% look into property, look at the different strategies that have low barrier to entry, and yeah, see what you can do with it.
And what are your socials for anyone trying to find you or get hold of you?
Yeah, sure. So my all my socials pretty much the same thing. Yusuf Sheikh 01. That's for my Instagram, my TikTok, pretty much my YouTube as well. Facebook, same thing if you're on that. And yeah, that's where you can find me pretty much.
Well, thank you so much, Yusuf, for coming on the Quitters Never Win show and telling us all about your experience.
I appreciate you having me on, Mina. Thank you for that.
That was the Quitters Never Win show. I'm Mina Simone, and please like, comment, subscribe, and tell us who you want to see next. Dreams of a million keep going. I know that grind slow, keep going.